Hey, everybody. Art Hoppy here with the Art of Real Estate team in Century 21 New Millennium. I waited a little bit longer than I thought I would from the last video that I put out, which had to do with the initial announcement and some of the news and, reporting around the National Association of Realtors, NAR or NAR, and the settlement now that's being hammered out between the plaintiffs, NAR as a defendant. The Department of Justice has weighed in on various elements. And basically, I waited because there's so much that we're hearing that is changing, it's evolving, some of it's being challenged. But there are really a few things, and there are four particular, what I'll call myths, that I keep hearing that are a bit frustrating because I don't think that they're based in reality. They're not based in truth or fact. And yet they seem to be repeated time and time again. And it's part of the confusion that our industry is faced with. The first one is that they keep coming back to this idea of a standard commission. And there's never been a standard commission. But again, that's one of the accusations that we all were charging the same 3% or whatever, and yet if you do what we do in this industry, you realize very quickly that commissions have always been negotiable. It's always been a very competitive thing. On average, they've been coming down. In the almost 40 years now that I've been doing this, on average. You'll find very few industries as competitive as real estate when it comes to trying to earn somebody's business. So that's the first thing that's very persistent. And I think, again, just needs to be corrected. And part of the settlement is going to actually address and have very bold, conspicuous language that says the commissions are not set by law, they're not set by associations, they're fully negotiable, as they've always been. The second is this idea that because of some of the things that are being discussed and the way that commissions and relationships, agency, brokerage relationships are going to be communicated, that again, many people are reading into that the commissions will go down. Well, perhaps they will. Maybe they'll go up. Commissions are not really determined so much by anything more than what somebody is getting for their money and the market that we're trying to help someone in. So you go back to a buyer's market, which we haven't seen for a while here in our area, but there are times where commissions were much higher on average than what we see today. And there were bonuses and all sorts of things to try to attract buyer agents with their buyer clients to come and bring that successful buyer. Of course, the market's very different now. And so it does open the door, as it has for many years now, for there to be a more competitive look at commissions when somebody's deciding on who they would like to have represent them. Nothing wrong with that. But again, this idea that the sky is falling and suddenly it's going to be some big windfall for people, I just don't see that happening. I don't think that, again, that's being driven by anything that's coming down the pipe in our industry. Another myth is that buyers will have to directly pay their own buyer agents. Well, it's a semi-myth. It's actually a truth, and it's been true for as long as I've done this, because buyers are the only folks who bring money into the transaction, and having the buyer agent fee traditionally being paid by the listing company in lieu of the buyer paying directly has allowed buyers to essentially finance or kind of build that into the price of the home that they're paying, as opposed to writing a separate check and having what they're paying to their real estate professional plus their closing costs plus their down payment requirements. So if we do see that become a more common practice where sellers, for whatever reason, don't see value and they refuse to pay a buyer broker compensation to help bring a buyer to their sale, it's possible that the seller may see less commission and the buyer may hold that burden more so than ever before. But then there's also the thinking is, will that affect how buyers approach the sale? Are buyers going to not be able to buy as much because now they've got an even greater cash outlay? So again, a lot of unknown around that, but I don't think it's automatic to say that buyers will automatically pay themselves, because there are methods that, again, are still allowed, which gets us to the fourth myth that's kind of related to this. And that is that sellers, cannot or don't have to or won't have to, pay buyer commissions. Well, they never had to pay them. It was a smart thing to do. As we've sold real estate through the decades, to have not just one, but two professional agents, one that you've hired to sell your home, the others working with that great buyer. And by attracting them, you end up with the type of sales history that we've had. Okay, so perhaps that's going to change. Maybe uh, a seller doesn't want necessarily to do that. But really, all that's changing in these agreements and this settlement that's occurring is that they will no longer allow for a listing agent and brokerage to advertise in the MLS what they're willing to co-op or share or compensate a buyer's agent for bringing that successful buyer. Doesn't mean it can't happen. It just can't be advertised in the MLS. Frankly, I don't see that as being transparent. And there's already one lawsuit I heard of just recently where an MLS is pushing back and saying, who are you to tell a seller how they can go about advertising their property? If they want to attract agents, if they want to put a bonus out there or some kind of fee or compensation or reward, they should be allowed to do that. So it'll be, again, interesting to see where that one falls. But the idea that a seller cannot do this is, again, a falsehood. Sellers most certainly can. They also can pay what we'll call concessions, not compensation from the brokerage listing broker to the buyer broker, but actually a direct credit or subsidy, we use the word sometimes, from the seller to the buyer. So now it's not involving so much the real estate agents, it's just the buyer saying, hey, I'd like some assistance. I want to buy your home. And now I'm going to put into the sales contract what I am hoping to get in negotiation with you to help make that happen. That could be closing costs. It could be you pay some or all of what I've told my buyer agent I'm going to give them for having helped me as my agent. So again, we're going to get into some very uncharted waters with this. But what I do not think is going to happen is anything drastic necessarily. I do think that the market tends to shape itself based on what's working, and what we know, the only model that we know that really has been working is sellers either directly or indirectly wanting the most buyers, serious, ready, willing, able buyers who, by the way, are almost always working with agents to come and bid up their home and buy their home and pay as much as the market will bear for their home. And along the way, if that means that you factor into your thinking a certain amount that goes out, either again directly to the buyer or to their agent or some combination of that, you'll be able to decide if that makes sense for you. So, they use the term decoupling. So the DOJ in particular is interested in decoupling the commission that was being paid to the listing company, then shared with the buyer agent company. They'd like to see that practice go away. But so far, where we think we're going with this is simply that in and of itself cannot be advertised in the MLS anymore. Again, I don't know that solves much as far as any concerns people had about it, but that seems to be the solution that they're coming up with. So stay tuned. There's, again, more change, more evolution that I think is going to come to the industry. I don't think it's going to be anything tremendously different because, again, what real estate boils down to is a buyer wants to buy and a seller wants to sell. And if we can find an efficient way to make that happen where people have the representation that they want and need, then again, we'll figure out a way to do this that will satisfy the concerns that people had going into this and allow us to help people in a manner that makes the most sense. If you have any questions on this or anything else real estate related, feel free to give us a call, 703-803-3893, or you can look us up on the web at www.theartofrealestateteam.com, theartofrealestateteam.com. I hope you have a great day. Thanks for watching. Take care.